Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Thursday, October 9th, 2025. Research, curriculum, and grading. New data sheds light on how professors are using AI. When Georgia State University professor Jisoo Kasun taught a new course this summer, she used generative artificial intelligence to help her brainstorm. Kasun, a professor of language, culture, and education, teaches current and future language educators. And she used Gemini, Google's generative AI chat box, to come up with ideas for readings and activities for a course on integrating identity and culture in language education. There were suggestions of offering different choices, like having students generate an image, having students write a poem, and these are things that I could maybe think of, but we have limits on our time, which is probably our most valuable resource as faculty. Kasun also uses Gemini to create grading rubrics. She says she always checks to make sure that what it generates is accurate and importantly represents of what my learning objectives are. It's a massive time saver, she says. Kasun is one of an increasing number of higher education faculty using generative AI models in their work. One national survey of more than 1,800 higher education staff members conducted by consulting firm Titan Partners earlier this year found that about 40% of administrators and 30% of instructors use generative AI daily or weekly. That's up from just 2% and 4% respectively in the spring of 2023. New research from Anthropic. The company behind the AI chat box Claude suggests professors around the world are using AI for curriculum development, designing lessons, conducting research, writing grant proposals, managing budgets, grading student work, and designing their own interactive learning tools, among other uses. When we looked into the data late last year, we saw that out of all the ways people are using Claude, education made up 2 out of the top 4 use cases, says Drew Bent, education lead at Anthropic and one of the researchers who led the study. That includes both students and professors. Bent says those findings inspired a report on how university students use the AI chat box and the most recent research on professor use of Claude. How professors are using AI. Anthropic's report is based on roughly 74,000 conversations that users with higher education email addresses had with Claude over an 11-day period in late May and early June this year. The company used an automated tool to analyze the conversations. The majority, or 57% of the conversations analyzed, related to curriculum development, like designing lesson plans and assignments. Bent says one of the more surprising findings was professors using Claude to develop interactive simulations for students, like web-based games. It's helping write the code so that you can have an interactive simulation that you as an educator can share with students in your class for them to help understand a concept, Bent says. The second most common way professors use Claude was for the academic research. This comprised 13% of conversations. Educators also use the AI chat box to complete administrative tasks, including budget plans, drafting letters of recommendation, and creating meeting agendas. Their analysis suggests professors tend to automate more tedious and routine work, including financial and administrative tasks. But for others, like teaching and lesson design, it was much more of a collaborative process, where the educators and AI assistant are going back and forth and collaborating on it together, Bent says. The data comes with caveats. Anthropic published its findings, but did not release the full data behind them, including how many professors were in the analysis. And the research captured a snapshot in time. The period studied encompassed the tail end of the academic year. Had they analyzed an 11-day period in October, Bent says, for example, the results could have been different. Grading student work with AI. About 7% of the conversations Anthropic analyzed were about grading student work. When educators use AI for grading, they often automate a lot of it away, and they do have AI do significant parts of the grading, Bent says. The company partnered with Northeastern University on this research, surveying 22 faculty members about how and why they use Claude. In their survey responses, university faculty said grading student work was the task the chatbot was least effective at. It's not clear whether the assignments Claude produced actually factored into the grades and feedback students received. Nevertheless, Mark Watkins, a lecturer and researcher at the University of Mississippi, fears that Anthropic's findings signal a disturbing trend. Watkins studies the impact of AI on higher education. This sort of nightmare scenario that we might be running into is students using AI to write papers and teachers using AI to grade the same papers. If that's the case, then what's the purpose of education? Watkins says he's also alarmed by the use of AI in ways that he says devalue professor-student relationships. If you're just using to automate some portion of your life, whether that's writing emails to students, letters of recommendation, grading, or providing feedback, I'm really against that, he says. Professors and faculty need guidance. Kassoon and the professor from Georgia State also don't believe professors should use AI for grading. She wishes colleges and universities had more support and guidance on how best to use this new technology. We are here, sort of alone in the forest, fending for ourselves, Kassoon says. Drew Bent with Anthropic says companies like his should partner with higher education institutions. He cautions, use Us, as a tech company, telling educators what to do or what not to do is not the right way. But educators and those working in AI, like Bent, agree that the decisions made now over how to incorporate AI in college and university courses will impact students for years to come. 1 in 5 high schoolers has had a romantic AI relationship or knows someone who has. New survey data finds that nearly 1 in 5 high schoolers say they or someone they know has had a romantic relationship with artificial intelligence. And 42% of students surveyed say they or someone they know have used AI for companionship. That's according to new research from the Center for Democracy and Technology, a nonprofit that advocates for civil rights, civil liberties, and responsible use of data and technology. CDT conducted national surveys of roughly 800 6th through 12th grade public school teachers. The vast majority, 86% of students, 85% of educators, and 75% of parents say they used AI during the last school year. CDT's Elizabeth Laird, one of the authors of the report, says the surveys showed some strong correlations. Among them, the more ways that student reports that their school uses AI, the more likely they are to report things like, I know someone who considers AI to be a friend. I know someone who considers AI to be a romantic partner. Data breaches, deep fakes, and damaged trust. Laird says the survey found higher levels of AI in schools, defined as 7 to 10 school-related uses for teachers, and 4 to 6 for students, correlates with increased exposure to data breaches, troubling interactions between students and AI-generated deepfakes, or manipulated videos or photos that can be used to sexually harass and bully students. This technology is a new vector for sexual harassment and bullying, which were long-standing issues before widespread use of AI. Laird says, and this has become a new way to exacerbate that. According to the report, 28% of teachers who use AI for many school-related tasks say their school experienced a large-scale data breach, compared to 18% of teachers who don't use AI or use it for only a few tasks. Laird, who previously worked as a data privacy officer for DC State Education Agency, says she believes that more data schools share with AI systems, the more they risk a data breach. AI systems take a lot of data. They also spit out a lot of information too, she says. That is contributing to that connection. Teachers with higher levels of school-related AI use were more likely to report that an AI system they were using in class failed to work as intended. These teachers were also more likely to report the use of AI damaged community trust in schools. For example, Laird says schools frequently use AI-powered software to monitor activity on school-issued devices, in some cases leading to false alarms and even student arrests. She says that this is especially concerning for students who can't afford their own personal computers. So if you're someone who has a personal device and doesn't have to use a school-issued device, you can essentially afford to keep your documents and messages private, Laird says. Risks to student well-being. Students who attend schools that use AI are a lot more likely to report that they or a friend had used AI for mental health support as a companion, as a way to escape reality, and to have a romantic relationship. When students reported having conversations with AI systems for personal reasons and not for schoolwork, 31% said they used a device or software provided by their school. I think students should know that they are not actually talking to a person. They are talking to a tool, and those tools have known limitations. Laird says, our research suggests that the AI literacy and training that students are getting are very basic. Laird says students and educators often aren't getting training or guidance to help them navigate the more complex challenges associated with technology. For example, only 11% of surveyed teachers said they received training on how to respond if they suspect a student's use AI is detrimental to their well-being. Educators who frequently use AI were more likely to say the technology improves their teaching, saves them time, and provides individualized learning for students. But students in schools where AI use is prevalent reported higher levels of concern about the technology, including that it makes them feel less connected to their teachers. What we hear from students is that while there may be value in this, there's also some negative consequences that are coming with it too, Laird says. And if we're going to realize the benefits of AI, we really need to pay attention to what students are telling us. Israel and Hamas agree on the first phase of Gaza ceasefire deal. Secretary of State Marco Rubio whispers to President Donald Trump, who is holding the note Rubio handed to him to warn of impending Impending ceasefire deal. Tel Aviv. Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire deal that's intended to end the devastating Gaza war, which unleashed the deadliest fighting ever between Israelis and Palestinians. President Trump said on Truth Social that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world. Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. The announcement came just after hours. Trump told reporters at the White House he was prepared to travel to the Middle East as early as this weekend. Israel and Hamas don't speak to each other directly, requiring indirect negotiations that were brokered by President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. The president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as well as mediators from Egypt and Qatar and Turkey in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. It is not clear when the ceasefire is due to take effect. It is believed the deal calls for Hamas to be released nearly 50 hostages, living and dead, and for Israel to free nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. As outlined by Trump last week, other key elements of the deal call for Hamas to disarm and give up a future role in governing Gaza, the seaside territory devastated by 2 years of fighting. Israel is expected to keep some troops in Gaza for now, but would eventually remove them as ceasefire solidifies and peace takes hold. The precise details of these key provisions were not immediately clear. The agreement marks a major breakthrough after multiple failed efforts and 2 previous ceasefires that unraveled. A truce reached in January of this year fell apart in March when Israel renewed an offensive in Gaza and ceasefire in the early days of the war in November 2023 lasted just a week before collapsing. The broad international effort has built widespread support for the latest ceasefire and raised hopes that this one will last. In both Israeli and the Palestinian societies, strong majorities have favored an end to the fighting. The war began with a surprise attack by Hamas on southern Israel. In in the early morning of October 7th, 2023. Nearly 1,200 people were killed. Mostly Israeli civilians, including many attending a weekend music festival. This was the worst one-day attack on Israel since the country's founding in 1948. Israel unleashed a ferocious response. That has claimed the lives of more than 67,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children. Israel's sustained bombing campaign and relentless ground force offensives have leveled most of Gaza's homes, schools, hospitals, and businesses. Israel has limited aid to Gaza throughout the conflict, leading to desperate shortages of food and medicine. The Gaza population of more than 2 million has been repeatedly uprooted through the war, with most residents now squeezed into tent encampments in the southern part of the territory near the border of Egypt. And the end of the fighting is expected to lead to rapid increases in the supply of food and other basic needs. But the rebuilding of houses, roads, water, and electricity systems will be a project lasting many years. And while an end to the war may now be within reach, there's no clear roadmap to resolve the question of the Palestinian political rights. The plan calls for Hamas to step aside after ruling Gaza for nearly 2 decades. It calls for qualified Palestinians and international experts to form a transitional governing committee. In addition, an international board of peace, chaired by Trump, would supervise the committee and oversee the reconstruction of Gaza. On the critical question of a Palestinian state, the plan offers a vague call for a credible pathway to Palestinians' self-determination and statehood, but provides no details. Israel, meanwhile, has emerged from the war in a much stronger security position after decimating Hamas in Gaza, slamming Hezbollah in Lebanon, and hammering Iran's nuclear facilities. Yet Israel has been isolated internationally for the way it carried out the Gaza war, inflicting so many civilian casualties, restricting humanitarian aid, and damaging so much of the territory's infrastructure.